And sisters, we've all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice. Oh, let us all, Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed. Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice. Jimmy Lakey, Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey. Jimmy Lakey.
Well, top of the morning to you. I got to fix that button right there. Take that thing down. There we go. How's everybody doing today? I'm running around here like a crazy man, trying to get set back up and in the routine of things. Yes, I could be suffering a little bit of jet lag this morning. Just realized the power cables and my headphones are all tangled up together. Anyway, good morning. Happy day the Lord has made. Yes, I am back in the United States of America on this glorious day the Lord has made. It is the 23rd day of June, year of our Lord 2025, and back from Rwanda, I am Arloa. First one to welcome me back to the studio. Thank you. Arloa says, welcome back. Good to have you back. She says, Texas is better. Already talking smack about the great state of Texas. That's what we Texans like to do. We talk smack about our state. So good to have you here. Anybody see my Instagram post? I think it was an Instagram from Africa. I posted up. I went to a little burger shop called Mr. Chips. It's one of the highlights of my trip now. It's a burger spot. I think the guy's from Belgium, but he's really masterfully figured out the burger. I've tried burgers in Africa before. At the Marriott Hotel, all the nice hotels, they have burgers, and even some of the local shops, but they're not all that great. Mr. Chips has figured out the burger routine, and maybe it was just because I was very very, very hungry for a burger. But if you'd like to see photos of Mr. Chips burgers, fascinating, fun time that was. And that was also a fun time because there's an area of town that I'm not that familiar with in Rwanda. And my driver and friend who I drive, he drives me around a lot. He had some things come up, so he couldn't take me that night. And so I had to find Mr. Chips. And so I'm on the phone with my hotel. I have my map out of the hotel reception, and I'm telling them I've got issues here. I'm finding Mr. Chips. We're looking it up. They call a driver who speaks very little English, and he tells them he knows where it's at. Then he gets in the car and he says, "Where's this at?" He doesn't know where it's at. But we found Mr. Chips, and it was a rainstorm. Remember the day of the rain? That was the day that I went to Mr. Chips for dinner, and I had a good burger. So anyway, if you ever go to Africa with me, request to go to Mr. Chips. We can have a good burger, and they just do a good job. And I got I looked at my credit card statement where I paid for it, and I had the great burger, the fries, and a drink, and it was delicious. And the conversion rate on it was $7. So may go there for lunch today because it's in the budget. $7 at Mr. Chips. There's another place called Mesa Fresh. I did not go to this time. Forgive me for not going, but Mesa Fresh is a place that is it's kind of like a Chipotle, but it's African. They have all the same burritos and tacos and things, and so they're trying to be like a Chipotle or a Qdoba. So anyway, good times. I'm back, and I am jet-lagged this morning, late getting to the pre-show meeting because I'm stumbling around here as if a man. I don't exactly know where I'm at right now, and I do know where I'm at, but I kind of don't know where I'm at. So just was tangled up in a cord. I did not realize I'd been tangled up in a cord the entire morning as well. But hey, it's okay. I choose this life, and this life has chosen me, and we're going to be just fine. So don't sweat it, my friends. Don't sweat it at all. It's all good. All right, glorious day the Lord has made. What happened was flying back from Washington, D.C., heading back to Denver. I had a connecting flight at Washington, Dulles, and getting to Washington, Dulles, and it's the one time on direct on my flight that United Airlines, who I was flying on, most of their in-flight entertainment is recorded movies and things like that. Not a lot of options on the live stream. I guess there would be some, but I don't normally do it. This was an older United Airlines jet, and the only thing they had in the back of the in-seat entertainment was old school, and it was direct TV feed, which is just unusual for the in-flight entertainment system on United now. It's a little bit different. It's usually first run or second run movies and things like that. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I think I watched some news. I haven't really watched American news in a long time, and I'm trying to stay awake because I missed a connection in Washington, D.C., Washington, Dulles, and I was kind of cranky. I was a little bit on edge. I was wanting a cigar. I wanted out of the airplane. That's what I wanted. Ready to get home, and so I decided I would watch Fox News on the back of the chair in front of me on the in-flight entertainment system, and I'm watching it and just kind of catching up because if you watched last week, you heard me have had problems with all of my news sources. I was not getting a lot of news. I was watching the Al Jazeera, the CNN International, and telling you how biased that was. And I said, well, I need some Newsmax, or I need some Fox News. I need something to balance out the crap that I've been listening to. And so I turned it on Fox News, and I'm barely paying attention. I'm trying to stay awake on the final flight home. And I hear that we interrupt this program to bring you a special announcement, and they don't do, they have that swooping noise and says Fox News alert. And they put up the tweet or the image, and I think I had it, but I didn't send it over to producer Chad, President Trump's announcement of bombing Iran. And if you haven't seen it, it was quite interesting. He announced it on Truth Social, and that's always just fascinating that we live in a time in which a president will make major announcement, that they will do so on Truth Social. I just find that to be a very interesting time of that we live in, where you make an announcement not by sending out a press release or some kind of a news release or anything like that. You just put it out on your own Twitter feed, or in this case, your Truth Social feed, in which President Trump had said that we had bombed Iran. Let me give your thoughts on this. I'm hearing people like Thomas Massey and Rand Paul, as well as a bunch of Democrats are saying this is unconstitutional. This is not constitutional. You can't do this. And then I'm reading some scholars over the weekend, watching some news, and there's a lot of folks out there that kind of believe that possibly the War Powers Act is unconstitutional in and of itself, because it is the Constitution that gives the powers to wage war on the president, and it bestows all of that power to him. It's the War Powers Act that was passed by Congress that restricts those, and the argument constitutionally is you cannot restrict any president. You cannot restrict any president regarding the constitutional rights by making another law. You have to change the Constitution. President Trump's case, as he argues, Iran has been attacking us through proxies, and they're also a threat. And the War Powers Act declaration of war would be something that would take weeks, months, or what have you. And we have an immediate problem, and the president isn't trying to deal with that. So let me ask you your thoughts on the War Powers Act. Do you believe the president acted within his powers? That's one question I have for you. And also, do you support it? Now, if you watch the news, the Dems are crying and lying about the War Powers Act, in my opinion. You got Rand Paul and Thomas Massie, both of Kentucky. They're out there saying this is unconstitutional and Congress should have been consulted about this. I have a question for you. Do you believe that this was justified by President Trump? Now, as you read, and again, I'm watching the news from afar. I'm kind of getting all my sources. I'm even watching a little bit of the Fox on the airplane. And they were talking then about how, yesterday, about how Democrats and Republicans, Thomas Massie and Rand Paul come to mind, were very upset about this bombing, and they thought it was unconstitutional. And I'm watching it, I'm listening to it and say, wow, the Republican Party is divided. Remember, all week, I was having international news feeds tell me while I was in Africa last week that Republicans here in the United States were very much against this, and it had divided Donald J. Trump's party altogether. Well, last night I'm reading and I'm watching some television, catching up, getting ready to get back in the swing of today's show, and there is a poll out there that says 90% of what we'd call MAGA Republicans, Donald Trump type Republicans, actually support this bombing of Iran. So I want to get your thought. There's a lot of different news sources, some of them saying that the Republican Party is divided, some of them saying that Thomas Massie and Rand Paul really carry some weight for the Republicans and they're real thought leaders and a lot of people are behind them and say that this is right. And others, then I'm listening at the poll says, no, Trump's got 90% support among those that declare themselves as MAGA Republicans. So I want your thoughts out there on the comments, wherever you're on the chat room. Do you believe the president was justified? Yes and yes. Do you believe that this was the right thing to do? Yes and yes, says Jim. Do you believe that there's any constitutional crisis? Do you believe there's any constitutional crisis going on here? I would say not. I would encourage you to go back and watch. I don't even know what show was on. I think it was the Mark Levin. Somebody had a guest on yesterday that I was quite fascinated with. And again, I was jet lagged and just kind of watching and thinking I'm going to take some notes. And I never took notes. I was trying to stay awake as a jet lagged human. But it was a former Trump official and I think a Bush official as well, had been a lawyer. And they went through the Constitution of the United States and the intent of our forefathers. And I've never heard it said, because I always thought when Democrats held power, the War Powers Act limit the powers of the president. And yet, if you're a constitutionalist, you have to face this argument that can you change a constitutionally ensconced power by passing a law that changes it? By definition, you cannot do that because the Constitution is the same thing with the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms. That's the frustration that many of us have is it is unabashed. It's without regret. It says you have the right to keep and bear arms. It shall not be touched, right? What part of that do you not understand? Well, lawmakers, Democrats usually pass laws that infringe upon our Second Amendment right. And the constitutional scholars right there. So, the constitutional scholars say this is the same thing. When you pass a War Powers Act that limit the president's right, the Constitution does not infringe upon his rights. The Congress's power on the War Powers Act is if you don't like the war or you don't like the battle or you don't like the fight, then I'll read some of these comments that are flashing on the screen. I'll get to them here in just a second. You can't infringe upon that right. The only thing Congress has is the power of the purse. So if Congress doesn't like a conflict, they can cut off funding to it, but the powers of the president shall not be infringed. And I believe that's really the case of all of our constitutional rights and constitutional framework is that it was not meant to be infringed upon. It was not meant to be It was not meant to be bothered. It wasn't meant to be screwed with. It was just, that shall not be infringed. The freedom of speech, very little limits on that at all, because it's the Constitution, and you can't change the Constitution. You got to change the Constitution. You can't just go pass a bunch of laws because they violate the merits of the Constitution. And I think we have some of that with the War Powers Act that has been very controversial. And every time the Democrats have a president that does something, Republicans squawk about the War Powers Act. And every time Donald Trump breathes, they squawk about the War Powers Act. But I think you go back, and it's a really interesting argument on the War Powers Act, is that does the president have the power to wage war, to not declare war? There's a different thing, but to fight battles, he has. As a matter of fact, here's one of the most interesting parallels in history that I found. We were already fighting the Revolutionary War when we declared the Declaration of Independence. We were already fighting battles. We were fighting the battles of Bunker Hill. We're fighting battles all over the colonial states. We're fighting some big battles all around the colonies against the British. And then 2 years later, we have the Declaration of Independence, and that was a declaration of war. So even our foundational government was fighting wars before the colonies had officially made a declaration of war. So interesting. Give me your thoughts. Do you agree with the bomb Iran? Do you believe with that? Are you on the Thomas Massey, Rand Paul side? I'm watching the news coverage, even the Fox coverage, talking about the president's people in the party that are divided. And all last week, I'm telling you how much they were squawking about the division, and Trump had divided his MAGA base. And then last night, I watch and I read some of the polling data that says 90% of MAGA Republicans support what is happening here. So the news is telling you one thing, but the truth shall set you free. And that's what I'm kind of watching here. It's just been interesting to watch the Democrats lie about the Constitution. It is interesting. I pontificate and I proliferate this bit of information. Anybody who sat silently, and that's most members of Congress, after the 20-something year war and embedding in Afghanistan and all the F-ups that we had over there, after 9/11, using 9/11 as a justification to do a lot of stuff and sacrifice a lot of lives and a lot of well-beings, anybody that is squawking about the War Powers Act or Donald Trump doing a preemptive strike or joining Israel in this battle and not committing troops, but the fascinating operation of it, anybody squawking about it and did not squawk about, and we're not leading the charge to get out of Iran after a couple of years, or excuse me, Iraq after a couple of years, shut your pie hole, okay? We probably don't merit any conversation with you. All right, give me your thoughts. Let me read. I know producer Chad has been scrolling some of the comments up there, but I think there's some good stuff there. So let me go back and catch up. Roger says the best was Russia criticizing the U.S. strike on Iran, the country that invaded Ukraine, criticizing a limited strike on a nuclear facility. Sit down and shut up, Russia. You are relegated to irrelevance. Hey, Vladimir, shut your pie hole. Dennis says, good morning. Good morning, Dennis, to you as well. Arloa had a great comment. I'll come back to that. Kim also, Dems need to grow the hell up. They did so many illegal moves in their 4 years, still are. The president has the ultimate choice on what to do to protect our country. I support Trump, says Kim, all the way, and the voters count, not the Senate or the House. We own all of them. We want our country safe. Trump does that. We voted for this. Anybody else also acting surprised as if Donald Trump, boy, he couldn't make his mind up. Donald Trump 60 days ago, through the Swiss, sent a letter to the supreme leader, the Ayatollah. We used to just call him the Ayatollah. Now all the news guys are like, we were waiting for a comment from the supreme leader. Right? I like supreme pizzas, but not supreme leaders. Thank you. And so we're waiting for a comment from the supreme leader. The supreme leader's in a bunker somewhere looking for a goat. I don't know what he's doing. He's somewhere. The supreme leader's there. It's fascinating. They're acting as if Donald Trump had never mentioned this. This was part of the campaign. Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. This was part of the presidential campaign. Anybody shocked by this becoming a real discussion, you're probably just used to previous politicians. Did you realize it's been 4 previous presidents? And I think I played, if not, I was in a jet lag stupor Even Hillary Clinton said if she became president, she would bomb into the annals of history Iran for their nuclear weapons. Everybody has promised and said we're going to take out your nuclear sites, and only Donald J. Trump has the ability and power to do that. And again, go back 4 presidents and anybody in Congress when Barry Obama, when Bill Clinton, when George W. Bush, when they were threatening to bomb Iran, if were any of these Democrats, or I'm sure Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, at least are consistent in probably their views, but were they squawking about the War Powers Act? I also read that if Donald Trump wanted 16, I think it was, they traveled with 16 or 8 of these. Every news story is different on how many bunker busters actually went in, how many actually landed. I guess they deployed all of them. And then you had missiles being fired from a submarine as well on Saturday night. And that was quite fascinating. And just the rain of hell came down on those targets that the U.S. had. That was what? Let's say 2, 3, 4 dozen bombs, right? 2 or 3, 4 dozen bombs. And, with those 2, 3, 4 dozen bombs, guess what? It was nothing compared to what Barack Obama launched, or Joe Biden Joe Biden pulled us out of Afghanistan in a very, very pathetic way. But between what Barack Obama launched in his final year of office, I think it was 29 bombs. And was anybody squawking about the War Powers Act when Barry Hussein Obama kept us in that Iraqi conflict? And for way too long. Rachel jumps into the chat room. She says, how could anyone imagine keeping the operation like this secret if Congress had not had to be consulted? This was completely successful because of the way in which it was planned and implemented. Agree with the action. Many presidents have done this, including Democrat presidents, and they've done this. Remember Bill Clinton famously, every time he figured out he was screwing around with an intern, he'd bomb a factory and say he was really getting after Iraq or Afghanistan, and then you figured out it was an aspirin factory. It wasn't any big deal. It wasn't some big military asset, but it was always the wag the dog scenario. Donald J. Trump is not wagging the dog, my friends. Donald J. Trump campaigned on this. And again, the media will portray as if you're divided, but 90% of MAGA Republicans say he acted within his powers. Arloa jumps in from the chat room. She's on the Facebook. She comments, I do believe he acted within his power. Scary, depending on the president in office, but could not have the surprise bombing if they had to debate it in Congress first. And the surprise element of this was quite fascinating. And I started yesterday. Anybody else start thinking about those B-2 pilots? I mean, I was thinking about those B-2 pilots like crazy. 36 hours, they said, round trip. Now, I know 36 hours. 36 hours from the time I walked last week into the Kigali airport, and then I walked out of the Denver International Airport, not home, not my hotel to my house, nothing, just in the airport and out of the airport. It was just over 36 hours. And I will tell you, my friends, I was not that well rested. And I actually had an actual seat, not a cockpit seat. And so I started reading, and I did a little research on what that B-2 is like. And they can fit up to 3 operators in there. Usually they go with 2. Some special occasions they will do 3. They rotate between the pilots because they want them to be sharp and accurate. And they actually can take a sleep. And there's a little cot, a camping cot, that's not made for comfort, but it's behind the seats, according to my research. And I don't think they've ever snapped big photos of, here's a tour of the B-2 bomber. But they say that there's a actual bed you can lie down in because they need them to be sharp. And there's also, and this is a big question I think all of us had, at least I had, how do you go to the toilet? Supposedly, they do have a small, I picture it kind of a camping squatting box, if you will. They have a little toilet that is made for this type of thing. So there is an actual toilet, and there is actually, some accounts say there's a small microwave and there's a small refrigerator, but not like dorm size. We're talking very tiny thing for them to have snacks. 36 hours sitting and I guess lying down in the cot in the back. Fascinating. And again, not a lot of documentaries about the B-2 bomber because it is a very, by definition, stealth thing. But I just found the whole thing interesting. They're heroes that flew that far. Jeff jumps in on the big screen. You can see it. Supreme leader indeed. King has already been taken by media and protesters. Didn't want to confuse the purple hairs. That is amazing to me. You have people on one weekend protesting Donald Trump. No kings, no kings. And then they're mad that we bombed a supreme leader. So they're anti-kings here, but the supreme leader, we probably should have gotten his permission. And it's kind of like the signs you see gays for Palestine. And you can debate the War Powers Act, and you can debate all these things that you want to debate. But this attack probably couldn't happen to a better guy, to a nicer guy. And I'm not for regime change. That doesn't work out very well for Americans. It's not the best tactic for us. You have to let the uprising come from the ground. And I hope that we're working with some clandestines, and I'm sure there's organizations that are working behind the scenes to empower. I have seen some videos, and I've hesitated to pull them because it's just people saying that's what's happening. But evidently, there were people on the streets in Tehran dancing and celebrating. Men and women, ladies had lost their head coverings and everything, and they were jumping around, screaming in cheer of the United States of America. Now, it was just people saying this was in Tehran. I couldn't corroborate who filmed it in Tehran, when it was taped in Tehran, so I didn't want to air it. But you see some news circulating that the people of Iran are very, very happy right now, for the most part. I watched a commentator on one of the news channels that happens to be an expat, was born in Iran, but her family had to move here. She's talking about her sources there very much don't like the supreme leader, but they're also a little bit frightened right now. They don't know where the bombs are coming, and some civilians have been hit, and they're just ready for the bombing to go away. They're not yet thinking of uprising. So it's fascinating time in history. So let me ask you this question also. You ready? Here's the question I have for you. The question I have for you today is how big a moment in history do you believe this is? So far in the chat room, I've asked the question to give you a chance to respond. Do you believe we're in a constitutional crisis? Are you on the Rand Paul, Thomas Massie side of the Republican libertarian isolationist? Are you on the side of the Democrats who say this is an absolute constitutional crisis? Or do you think this was something that's merited and we're all safer as a country because of this? That's a question. My next question would be, what do you think Iran would do and can do to retaliate? We do know that there are several Iranians and even people on the terrorist watch list that were released into the interior of this country in the last administration. So will Iran retaliate? And what will they do in retaliation? There's several schools of thoughts. I've heard a couple of generals say this. We're trying to save face and look like we still hate the great Satan, but we're going to have a strike somewhere nearby one of the air bases and make sure nobody gets hurt because we don't want to tick off Donald Trump. If we do that, it's going to be really, really, we're going to become an ocean of glass over here if we're not careful. So we don't want to do that. There's the FU America and bombing somewhere here. New York City is on high alert. A lot of major cities will, one of these sleeper cells that were released into the country by Joe Biden and his border policy, what will one of them be activated? Nobody knows the answer to that, but will Iran retaliate and how they will do so? They've already retaliated against Israel, but Israel doesn't give a flying flip. Israel is continuing the bombings. If you haven't heard, Israel continues to go after nuclear sites and other potential nuclear things. Even yesterday, there was just one bomb. They had a missile attack. All the alerts went off in Israel, and everybody heads for the bunkers and the shelters, and there was one missile coming in. Was this Iran saving their missiles and trying to save them for a better day, or is Iran just out of either missiles or capability to launch? Because what I heard they said was Israel was having such luck and freedom flying over the country of Iran now that they had total control of the airspace, and they were just patrolling the Iranian airspace as if they owned it. And every time they got word that a missile had been launched, they would rush airplanes to that area, bomb the crap out of whoever had just launched those missiles or whatever missile sites those were, and then could see the next round that was already queued up. So it's very possible that we have depleted, or they have depleted, Iran's ability to retaliate, at least with missiles. And if they're going to do so, that's going to have to be something more, let's say, more caveman-like, as these jackwagons tend to do. Anyway, lots of questions out there for you. A lot of debate over the weekend, but I guess my summation of it is Donald Trump, in my estimation, had the ability to do this. He had the right to do it. He had the people around him. The media says, how did this not leak? Well, it didn't leak because Donald Trump has the right people around him in this instance. The White House is slamming a CNN report, by the way, that Democrats are crying and say they were not consulted in this. I'll read some of the statement of this coming up. By the way, a programming note, producer Chad, Richard C. Lyons has had to cancel. He right at this moment, and Richard C. Lyons is not there. So we'll have Niels Gravelius coming up here in just a moment as a guest. But Richard C. Lyons is asking for a rain check and a reschedule. So I hate it when they do that right at showtime, but we're broadcast and podcast and streamcast professionals here. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is demanding that CNN retract a story on Sunday that claims Senate Minority Leader Chucky Schumer and House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries were not briefed on Donald Trump's strike in Iran. Trump launched what was called Operation Midnight Hammer. Who names these things? They always come up with some of the best names. Operation Midnight Hammer on Saturday, and they struck 3 of Iran's key nuclear facilities in a surprise attack. The White House announced the success of the attack later that night. CNN reported that House Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune, both Republicans, were briefed on the strikes ahead of time, but Schumer and Jeffries, both Democrats, received notifications only before the public announcement and well after the attack. Caroline Leavitt went to X, or the formerly known Twitter, and said this is fake news. She says this is fake news. The White House made bipartisan courtesy calls to congressional leadership and spoke to Senator Chuck Schumer before the strike. Representative Jeffries could not be reached until after, but he was briefed, according to CNN. Please retract. So CNN's being called liars, and this is, again, what I was saying. I was watching CNN International, and it was so full of propagandas and lies that you could drive a freight train through just the lies they were telling. So CNN is not a legitimate news source out there. Anytime it says CNN is reporting, I hate to say, I just can't trust the old CNN. I just don't trust the CNN at all. I don't like them at all. I'm not big fans of them. No CNN for me. All right, so give me your thoughts on that. And that brings up a question. It's really our question of the day is, what is it you can say you used to trust, but you no longer trust? Now, this could be funny. It's been said once you get a certain age, you should never trust a fart. I hate to be crude this morning, Arloa, and you ladies out there, but that's probably true. Once you get a certain age, you should never trust gas. You should just never know what's going to happen at a certain age, I'm saying. What are some other things you trust? I used to be able to trust the news on television, but now I figured out that the news on television is a lot of time propagandized, and it's not in lies, fake news over the weekend saying that the Democrats were not briefed on this bombing. Caroline Leavitt says, no, we talked to Chuck Schumer in advance, and we tried to reach Hakeem Jeffries, but he was evidently indisposed, and we couldn't reach him. We talked to him afterwards, but he got a full briefing, but we tried to reach him. CNN is being told to retract that story. So what are some things this is the question of the day, things I used to trust but no longer do. Things I used to trust but no longer can trust. What is your list of some of those? As I said, you might not want to trust if you're a certain age, you might not want to trust it when you have the urge to toot. You might be careful because you might pollute. You see what I'm saying? You got to be careful of that. That's a question of the day. Things I used to trust but no longer trust. Probably a lot of us grew up trusting CNN. We thought CNN was an outlet you could trust, but I don't trust CNN any further than I can throw them. I would say mainstream news as a whole is something that I don't trust at all because they're usually lying. Things I used to trust but I no longer do. The urge to toot could cause you to pollute. That's one thing. You better be careful on trusting that. And also the fake news out there, the media. Doctors, it's tough. Well, doctors, I kind of trust them. I think they're doctors. We have a lot of uneducated doctors that don't continue to stay in touch with what's happening. Becoming a medical doctor is the only profession out there that you really don't have any required ongoing training. It's just kind of left up to the doctor to keep that medical doctor cert hanging on the wall. If you're a real estate agent in most states, you have to continue ongoing rejuvenation and re-education. But if you're a medical doctor, once you get the degree, how much you stay on top of things is kind of up to you. So doctors can be somebody that maybe you used to trust implicitly, and now your doctor tells you something, and you're like, let me think that through. I'm going to check the WebMD. How many of you used to wholeheartedly and explicitly trust elections in America? And now you're kind of have your spidey senses up, and maybe you don't trust the elections in America as much as you used to. How many of you used to trust, until Dr. Fauci came along, if the CDC said, oh, this is a great one. Oh, hold on. Jim interrupts me. I no longer trust lifetime warranties. Too many people are giving companies too many outs. That's true. Lifetime warranties are probably something that that's a good one. I've never thought of that, but now I do think of that. Todd says, I don't trust most people in general. There you go. That's that spirit out there of question everything, which is probably true. I trust a lot of people, but I'm probably a very trusting guy. Things I used to trust but no longer trust. How about this? The CDC and the FDA used to think if they said something, it was probably good. Used to think, oh, they wouldn't let red dyes in a food if it was going to harm us. Oh, they took them out of makeup 20 years ago, but they're still putting them in the Fruit Loops. Oh, maybe we can't trust the FDA and the CDC anymore. Things I used to trust but no longer do. Let me hear your comments on all of these. Things you used to trust but no longer do. Judges. It's hard to really trust a lot of judges anymore, isn't it? You watch these judges really go against the Constitution, getting slapped down by the Supreme Court, saying you're overreaching, you can't do that. Things you used to trust but no longer do. A lot of the confines of our government. It used to be something that I think we felt like we could trust, and now we don't. The FBI, the Department of Justice, things I used to trust but no longer do. What are the things that you used to trust but no longer do? Some of you could say your ex-spouse, I used to trust him, but now I don't. I used to trust her, but now I don't. There's a lot of things, both politically and practically, that probably fall into the category of things I trust but no longer do. And I love to hear that is our question of the day out there. You can respond on all the forums. Hey, good morning, Rumble. How you doing out there? People joining us in on the Rumble feed. Rumble, we do see your comments when you make them in the chat box on the Rumble feed. So love to hear from you on the Rumble. If you're on Rumble, say good morning. If you're on Twitter, I'm looking at some of the numbers coming in on the Twitter machine, the X machine. Good morning, everybody following Jimmy Lakey there on the Twitter. Thank you. The numbers are pretty good on Twitter this morning. Some folks lurking around on the Media Equalizer on Facebook. Some folks coming and going on the Red Wave America page on Facebook. The Facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page is rocking and rolling this morning. And also our YouTube feed's got some viewers out there as well. And a lot of folks do watch this show after the fact. And if you don't watch the show, if you're not watching the show live or you miss part of it, you can go back and just listen to the audio. It becomes a podcast shortly after on all of the podcasting platforms, and that would be the podcast platform of Apple Podcast, iTunes, wherever there's a podcast. iHeartMedia, that's what it's called. Apple Podcast, Podbean, everywhere you listen to podcast, you can download this show after the fact, audio only. If you want to watch the video of it, which I don't blame you, come back and any of the feeds that you're on now, you can go back and they're archived on the news feeds there. All right, good morning to you. Question of the day. After you download and listen on your favorite podcast platform, the question of the day I have for you is things that you used to trust but no longer do. I'd love to hear some more of these things you used to trust but no longer do. Feel free to jump into that conversation. Jim says, I used to trust that universities were full of smart people. Then I worked for one for 20 years, and I realized that they really are political money burners. Now, that's another great one, Jim. We used to kind of say, boy, if our kids grow up, or when we grow up, we want to go to college. We want our kids to go to college. And now you hear that your kid wants to go to college, and you pause and say, wow, did I teach them well enough about their values? Did I teach them well enough about the world? Or are they going to be susceptible to some real life-harming and life-altering problems here with it? Indoctrination by liberal professors. So that's a great one, Jim. Used to trust the universities, but no longer trust the universities. I love to get all of your thoughts on this. Things you used to trust, but no longer do. And I got a message here that said, man, I was going to say fart, and then you said it. Well, I'm sorry. When it comes to sophomoric humor, I'm right on it. I'll jump right on that stuff, and we'll have a great time. All right, good to have you here. We're going to bring in a great guest here in just a moment. Welcome back to me, back from Africa. As you know, if you want to see some of the shows we did from Rwanda last week, go back to the archives. You can listen to them. You can see them. And love to. I'll be catching up with some stories there. Yesterday at Facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page, I reshared a picture or some video of our kindergarten graduation that I got to help celebrate. There's another video on that launching today. And you can find those videos usually launched at Facebook.com/Jimmy Jimmy Lakey fan page. We share them from the facebook.com/Rivers Promise page. And I got to hand out little certificates to the little guys and little girls in our kindergarten graduation at our Legacy Christian Academy there. There's also, if you ever go to a graduation ceremony and you hear the da, 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 pomp and circumstance thing, and you're kind of, it's a very stoic, watch the processional of our kindergartners and their teacher walking into our graduation ceremony in Rwanda. There was a lot of hand clapping going on, and you could not hear in the background, but there's a guy with a microphone, kind of a DJ, and they were all singing so I don't know what, they were clapping to something, and it was a great processional into the graduation, and that is all up in my Facebook page, facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page, facebook.com/Jimmy Lakey fan page. You can see that. And again, we're going to launch some more videos, but I'm back from Africa. I'm glad to be back from Africa. And to all of you who contributed and participated and donated, we appreciate you doing that. We were able to buy some food. I don't know if you saw my post. I spent $2 million at a Rwandan grocery market. Fortunately, it was not American dollars. It was Rwandan dollars, which is about $1,500 to $1,800, $2 million plus dollars, buying groceries just for the final few days of our school year. So anybody who did contribute or can contribute, we always appreciate. Legacy Christian Academy, our work in Africa, does continue even after the school year. We take care of these kids. So feel free, riverspromise.org. All right, he's waiting patiently in the green room. I love it when guests show up early. My old friend Richard C. Lyons bailed out at the last minute at 8:30. And so I'm yapping, and I see Niels Gravelius in the green room, and he shows up early. That is a responsible guest right there. Mark 5 stars and let his publicity company know that he is the best of the best. And I'm not even talking to him, don't even know him, but I'm telling you, Niels Gravelius, the best ever, because he showed up early, and therefore we will alter and just jump him in so he doesn't have to keep waiting. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce to you, we'll switch topics here. Niels Gravelius is a Los Angeles-based private investigator. He conducts investigations without regard to local, national borders, has done some pretty big and crazy investigations, and the LA private investigator is in the green room now. We pod him up to the studio now. Niels, welcome to the program, sir. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for hopping in here. I got a couple of questions. As a private investigator, I want to talk about the murders in Minnesota that happened. I was in Africa watching them from afar last week, and some of the fallout of that the last couple of weeks. But before I do that, how does someone end up as a private investigator? What was the entry path into that line of work to become a high-profile PI?
Well, it's unusual, really. Jimmy, the way that it works is there's no sure path. Historically, private detectives in Los Angeles have been cops who got fired for graft and grift and whoring and drinking and that sort of thing. I was a soldier for a while, a couple of enlistments. I was a scout and a counterintelligence man, and then I went into the Pinkertons and eventually filtered my way into my own professional practice.
When I think of private investigators doing a private practice, they're divorcing whether the spouse is having an affair or, so maybe some forensic accounting or things like that. You've looked at some pretty big cases. I mean, you've looked at security cases, border security cases, murder cases. Talk about the broad scope that you're not just trailing somebody's spouse to find out who their lover is. You're doing some big stuff here.
Well, Jimmy, historically, that was a mainstay of the profession. I've stayed far from it as best I can. People willing to pay a man like me tens of thousands of dollars to find out whether or not their wife is stepping out on them, typically, they're just paying for bad news. Now, I do get involved in those things if it turns out it's extortion or abuse, or there's some hidden agenda that's not obvious, and that's occurred many times.
Wow.
But people come to me when the government they once trusted failed them, and I'm in no danger of having to find honest employment, to be honest, Jimmy.
Wow.
When Alan Pinkerton landed here in the 1850s, went to Chicago, and he got a good look at what government was doing for people in Chicago. He knew that his future was secure, doing what government was taxing them so much for and had failed to do.
Fascinating. Again, I want to welcome him to the program. Our guest, his name is Nils Gravilius. He has an organization called Gravilius Detective Services, and I'm glad to have him on the program today. He got his start as a soldier, as he mentioned, and now he's a private detective. It's fascinating. You mentioned that as long as the government's in business and doing business as inappropriately as they do, there's never a lack of work for you. I just launched a question of the day and said things I used to trust, but now I know with a little bit of age and wisdom, I don't trust them any longer. And, you could say maybe don't trust it when you feel gas at a certain age. You got to be careful there. Sorry to be crass. You can say don't trust a lifetime warranty anymore. There's a lot of things that you can trust or don't trust with more age and wisdom. But things that we used to trust, I used to trust implicitly the CDC, the FDA, but after the COVID crisis, if you will, I don't trust them anymore. I used to trust people like Dr. Fauci, but never again shall I do that. Used to trust our judicial system and judges to be impartial and to keep the blindfold of Lady Justice on. Nils, it seems like not only is there always going to be a line of work, it seems like your work would be piling up if that's the measure of my client base or people that have been screwed by the government.
Well, yes, or at least ignored by the government. Last week, the Justice Department announced the arrest of a 20-something Chinese national living in the United States on a series of charges loosely called pig butchering. And what it is he led a ring doing sweetheart scams with cryptocurrency. Where you get this mysterious message from an attractive female over your social media, and then you follow down the rabbit trail, and next thing you know, you've given her $1 million in crypto, and she's gone. And then you call the FBI, the police department, that sort of thing. They take a report and say, well, there's not much we can do. Well, the government policy in these cases is to do nothing. And it's because they want you to get robbed, because they view cryptocurrency as you robbing them. And so it is only with this recent laundering of government that our Justice Department has actually started working on these guys. That's a great example. How about the fire department here in Los Angeles, LA City, LA County? The firemen and firewomen are fantastic. They're stud warriors out putting out fires every chance they get. They trust government to provide them hoses, hydrants, water mains, that sort of thing, and government fails them. But there's never a shortage of transvestite Children's Day. There's never a shortage of DEI, but there is a shortage of resources for actually putting out fires. My sister lost her home in Altadena. So did 90% of the residents in that city. And most of them were believers in good government, that the Democrats in California would protect them from wildfire. And look what happened to them. The rug pulled out from under them. And the people running the county of Los Angeles are still out there virtue signaling about all of the great things that they're not doing.
Wow. Again, if you're listening to the podcast version, not watching the screen, you're listening to Nils Gravilius. We'll talk about his private investigation service. Nils, I brought you on originally for this topic. While I was in Africa for 11 or so days, and I was out of the pocket, there was this news story nationally, and I don't get all the details in Africa because my news sources there are not, my cable news isn't working, and I'm running around not checking all the websites as quickly. But there were some Minnesota lawmakers that were gunned down, assassinated. And it's always interesting to me when they say the guy wrote a manifesto, he wrote some stuff, but we're not going to release that. They did that after a school shooting in Nashville. It makes me wonder why they don't put out the manifesto, or at least let us see it and find out what the guy was really thinking. But they say, well, the impression that I was getting was that this was some crazed, probably a Trump guy gunning down the Republican. And yet now you start to look at some of the things leaking out. The Minnesota police say, oh, by the way, he had the No Kings protest flyers in his car. Give me your thoughts on this case of this Minnesota assassin, that they're not going to release his writings or his manifesto. But they do say that maybe he wrote a letter that testified that Governor Tim Walz had asked him to assassinate Amy Klobuchar so that he could appoint himself as a U.S. senator. I mean, this is some pretty nasty, I guess, allegations circulating and percolating around. What do we know about this, and do we feel like we're not being told the truth by the government?
Well, as long as the Bureau keeps things ambiguous, they retain power, don't they? Because you can't accuse them of malfeasance or malpractice if you don't get to see all of the evidence, right? Like Las Vegas, like Nashville, as you've cited. Okay, so my sense of this guy is that if he had worn a keffiyeh and purple hair, they would be making excuses for him right now. They'd be celebrating him. Look at Luigi Mangione. He guns down some healthcare executive, and they're making T-shirts and a Broadway play about him. My sense of Bolter, the shooter, is that he had a break with reality. He had a long history of seeming stability, and suddenly he was unstable. Well, we live in a society that is increasingly insecure with competing voices, and some of it's programmed. It looks like it has all of the aspects of a psyop, but I don't think he is a psyop. I think he had a break with reality. It's either bipolar disorder or possibly cannabis psychosis. He was stable. He had all of the qualifications to own and operate a security company. He spent time in Africa, as you have, doing ministerial work. And then suddenly he's a violent man attacking politicians and with ambiguous messaging, the No Kings protest, and a letter that he wrote that finally leaked out, wherein he claims that Governor Walz told him to assassinate Senator Klobuchar and other people. I think the man is incredibly disordered, but it happened quickly, meaning he doesn't have a personality disorder. I think he has true psychosis. That's what I'm looking at, Jimmy.
I don't mean to play psychiatrist. You're a private investigator, not a psychiatrist as well. But you mentioned something triggered him. He had the No Kings protest. Are we at the point? I mean, you had a guy taking a shot at Donald J. Trump, which we know more about a lot of people in America than we do about that first assassin that went after Donald J. Trump. They cremated that body quicker than you could roast a hot dog on the 4th of July. I mean, it's a lot of nefarious things there. Could we live in a place and in a world now where the propaganda and the media is so hyping and juicing people up that they'll take a pot shot at a sitting president or show up at a house at a state legislators meeting on the way to their No Kings protest? Could it be that we're getting into this behavior because the media is truly indoctrinating them?
I think that's correct. Social media has become, in many ways, one of the four horsemen. It isn't always or uniformly bad, but people do see a lot of bad, strange things in social media. And then the efforts by men like Mark Zuckerberg to shape social media. Jack Dorsey did it on Twitter before Musk bought Twitter, to suppress one set of voices and amplify another set of voices. Well, that's what you wind up. And those are the aspects of a PSYOP, a psychological warfare program.
I'm sitting here watching and kind of thinking back over the weekend. Caroline Levitt from the White House is telling CNN, you need to apologize and retract that story. CNN ran with a story that Democrat lawmakers were not, the leaders, Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, were not notified in advance of the Iranian bombing. Caroline Levitt said, no, we talked in person to Chuck Schumer. We left a message for Hakeem. He was unavailable, but he called us back. He got briefed as well. And you're thinking, okay, so they play into the narrative that Donald Trump's a king and a dictator. A couple of weeks ago, Gavin Newsom said, I was not consulted about the National Guard, and they put out a screenshot of the phone call that went 12 minutes with the president and said, bring in the receipts here, buddy. We talked to you. It's politicians with the media that want to continue this psyop or this indoctrination that this guy's a king, this guy's a Hitler, this guy's a dictator. And they're going, no, everything you're accusing us we didn't do. They're playing right along into this attitude, aren't they?
I believe so. Well, one of the problems we've had over the years is my dad was a newsman, and he never considered it a profession. He considered it a craft. So, Jimmy, what defines something as a profession is there is a bright, shiny, enforceable line for malpractice. Show me where there is a line for malpractice in journalism. There is none. What's the punishment that they face when they make something up? You remember when Harry Reid made up a whole series of lies about Mitt Romney not paying taxes? The news media amplified it. Harry Reid does 180 and says, I lied, so what? And the news media marvels at his ability to lie, at what a liar he is and what a great liar is and how he lied for a great cause. And then they change gears. And all they're really doing is they're driving the getaway car for corrupt politicians.
You saw the same thing. The stories just keep popping in my head. And Donald Trump first term Russian collusion. There were people that actually won prizes, Pulitzers and other kind of reporting prizes for their brave reporting on everything that was considered and now known publicly to be a lie. They haven't apologized about it. They're still hanging their plaques on the wall that they won a prize for it. And then guys like Jake Tapper put out books like, did you know that Joe Biden had real cognitive issues? We had no clue. And they put out books and pretended nothing ever happened. I mean, it's over and over and over again.
I agree with you completely. Not only will they not apologize, never look for an apology. If they ever issue an apology, it's just to change gears. It's just to launder the page and start a new lie. That's it.
Wow. The voice of Niels Gravelius, LA-based private investigator. Talk more about that in just a moment. Let me come back to this Minnesota case. That's why I originally brought you on, and we've kind of found some interesting side conversations. What is it that should be investigated? I mean, we're in the world where assassinations are never acceptable. You have an attempted assassination, a couple of them of the president. We know that the Iranians have hit squads wanting to go after him. Now you have Minnesota political assassinations happening. I think we need to get to the bottom of it, what motivated, who motivated, whatever, because you want great citizens to be able, Republican and Democrat, to run for office. But with the threat of these assassinations and a violent world that's out there, you kind of go, I'm not going to put my nose out there on the firing line. As a private investigator, when you hear the story of this Vance Bolter, who was captured and is in custody, and he's a suspected murderer or assassin, what should be investigated that maybe has not been talked about and you don't think they're even looking at right now?
Well, in all of these assassinations, Routh, Crooks, Mangione, Rodriguez, and now Bolter, what I would be looking at is trying to figure out if they were operating as part of a group rather than just so self-motivated. Now, Bolter at this moment, if I had to guess, I'd say he's self-motivated. Mangione and Rodriguez and Routh and Crooks bear more looking at. Did you notice how quickly after Mangione murdered his victim, the CEO of the healthcare company, like the next day after he was identified, there was all of this thematic stuff in the left-wing, Twitter sphere, Blue Sky, whatever, about how he was the victim of healthcare companies, as if they knew in advance what to say. They had been delivered a talking point or some framing for this almost overnight. And it's just a little too clean, neat, sweet, and pat for me. I would be looking at who were these men communicating with prior to these operations. And it kind of ties into the masses organizations of the left. Have you noticed that Oregon has passed a law now that even if an Antifa is arrested, he or she must never be identified to the news media in terms of a booking photo, what city they're from, whom their employer is, where they go to school, are they a public charge, that sort of thing. I think a little bit of sunshine shining on the Ku Klux Klan would be lovely. They wear their Portland tuxedo and they mask up like Klansmen to exert violence, to intimidate people. They get arrested, quote unquote, but rarely are they ever charged. I think these are partners of the city governments in Portland and Seattle and San Francisco and New York and Los Angeles. This is their power base, and it's just like the KKK. These are their street troops, and they are masked for exactly the same reason.
I love it. We're going to steal that. We'll give you credit for it. The Blue Klux Klan. That's fantastic. That's you should copyright that. Good for Nils. Nils
I will
Grabilis.
trust you to do it, Jimmy. You run with it, my friend.
Oh, Blue Klux Klan. That's fascinating. That's fantastic. You mentioned a couple of shootings here, and I want to get your private investigator take. You got this Bolter shooting in Minnesota, and you've got a police department investigators going, "Oh, we have some information. We're not going to release that to you." That raises me an eyebrow. You had the Nashville school shooter. Oh, this is a transgender young person and has a manifesto, but for safety, we're not going to release that. You have this weird story years ago that we kind of forgotten about. You've alluded to it, the Las Vegas shooting, in which that guy, we don't know anything. We found he's a pilot. We don't know. It just kind of buried. We never found the motivation for that. On each of those, is it very similar on both? Are they different? As a private investigator, you have to, at least I would think, go, wait, I am investigating this, and there's certain documents you're not putting out in public. How important is it that for us to know the truth, they let us have some of this information publicly?
Well, Jimmy, you have to think about from whence they derive their power. Their charter isn't enough. The offices to which they're appointed aren't enough. They have vast public relation enterprises in all these big law enforcement agencies. You know, the FBI, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, which last night wished condolences to the Iranian military that got killed in the bombing. What you have to look at is what the reason that they would hide it, and it's like a shell game. If you don't know what it is, they can claim to know what it is, and you don't know what it is, and they're the professionals and you're not. You'll just have to take their word for it. It might be too dangerous for you to know what caused this man in Las Vegas to shoot 50 people. And really, the answer was always right there. Just the FBI wanted to make it ambiguous to enhance their own power. And the answer is he was angry about losing at video poker. And he had a unique sense of personal grievance and metastatic self-pity and decided to slaughter 50 people because he lost at video poker. And it wasn't any more complex than that.
Wow. The voice of Nils Grabilis. He's a private investigator from the Los Angeles area. Nils, a fascinating conversation. I definitely want to have you back on the show. You've written a couple of books people could look up called Skullduggery and Sub Rosa. Those were published in 2013. If folks want to follow your work, learn about your detective services, where do they find you at, Nils?
I am on X at Detective Nils, and Nils is like the plural of nothing, Jimmy. Nils, lots of nothing.
DetectiveNils.com, or is that what I heard there?
At Detective Nils on Twitter. I'm very pleased you would have me on your show, Jimmy, and anytime you need me aboard, just let me know.
I'd love to have you back on. That's great conversation. I love your insight on the media as well and the propaganda. Let me ask one more question on that. There's some of us who have followed things like Operation Mockingbird and some other things that the CIA and clandestine organizations did to infiltrate our media. In your investigative mind, how did we get to the place to where the media has become so lockstep in line with the propaganda machine rather than true journalism? How did we get here? Has it always been this way, or did something happen that infiltrated these organizations?
Jimmy, I think it was always there. What I think is new is the frequency and the amount of power that our media likes to claim over governance. Can I point something out? When one party wins, the media is in power with them. When that party loses, the media is out of power and lays siege to the White House, to the Congress, that sort of thing. That's how they perceive themselves. If you make a generalization about the media that is negative, they bristle, meaning that political party bristles as though you have personally attacked them. You've told a horrible, lurid joke about their daughter or mother. by going after the media. It's really strange. It's almost as if they were the same entity. There was a man who used to have a radio show broadcast all over the nation and in places of Canada and that sort of thing, named uh, Rush Hudson Limbaugh. And Limbaugh said about 4 years before he died that it isn't that the media is part of the Democrat Party, it's that the Democrats are part of the media.
Yeah. Neil Gravilius, I know you have they can follow you on the Twitter machine at Detective Nils, Nils. And again, I appreciate you hopping on here, by the way. And again, Gravilius Detective Services, is that the name of the big company?
Well, it's a big company, yes. It's a vast enterprise. L'État, c'est moi. It's just me, man. I've got a few evil henchmen out on the street taking care of business. You need a man placed under surveillance in Dublin or San Francisco or like a mean dog on a weak leash, Jimmy, always.
Detective, I appreciate you hopping on the program, my friend. Thanks for being in here. And you came on a little bit early, and I held you a little bit late. That's good. That's the mark of a good guest. They show up early in the green room, and then they let me just keep pontificating and proliferating because I find the conversation intriguing. And let me tell you, if I don't find the conversation intriguing, there's no need for that guest to be on the program because I'm bored, and if I'm bored, you're probably bored as well. So just letting you know, I found that one to be quite fascinating and intriguing. And you're welcome that we booked that for you to listen to today and enjoy. All right. Good to have you here. I got a question of the day before we do our meme roulette, the stolen meme section of the show. The big question of the day, the real legitimate question of the day is, what are some things you used to trust, but now you no longer do? Somebody has already mentioned, that would be me, mentioned you don't trust farts like you used to as you get older. You got to be careful, you old folks out there. You don't trust. I had a car one time that I couldn't trust the gas gauge on. I just couldn't trust it because sometimes I'd be lowered. It'd go from a quarter tank to empty real quick. So I had to get some gas gauges, but I was a junker. That was before I was a fine professional that I am today. I had a car that I couldn't trust the gas tank on. What are some things you used to trust, but no longer do? Of course, our Loa earlier said any more vaccines. Oh, we said the word. Stop the presses. We said the word. We're not allowed to say that word on this program. We got a hold of the papers. Been with us since day one. How many of you used to, every time you took your child to the doctor, every time they went back to school, you looked at the checklist and said, well, we got to get colored pencils, a protractor, and we got to get them the doctor to get about this many shots. And you had to go get them. Now, how many of you, if your kids or grandkids are in the public schools and they get the whole list of things they got to do, you're like, I don't trust that. Do you know in California, you can't opt out for even private schools? You can't. You got to do it. But this is something that I really prolifically don't trust the government on anymore. Maybe used to, but I don't trust it. If you're listening on the audio version of the show, I'm sorry. I'm holding up a prop. And it has the word VAX on it. You spell it out, VAX. That's what we're not trusting. That's a great one, Arlo. I appreciate you bringing that up. That kind of goes in line with the CDC and the FDA. Some things that you used to trust, but no longer trust. I used to trust that I would enjoy a trip to McDonald's. And now anytime I go there, I don't really enjoy it. I used to think that Big Macs as a kid were the best thing ever. Anybody remember that we ought to do lost menu items at fast food as a question? Anybody remember the McDLT? It came in a styrofoam container. One side was hot, one side was cold, and you put your burger together. For some reason, I remember that being the most tasty burger, and I'm looking back, probably that was awful. I just like the styrofoam. That's what I like. Anyway, so things you used to trust but no longer do. Feel free. That's our question of the day. And yes, it can be parts of the government that you no longer trust, but you used to trust but no longer do. Another question we started with, and if you want to go back and listen to it, it's an interesting conversation. Do you believe we're in constitutional crisis? Thomas Massey thinks so. Rand Paul thinks so. Tim Walz thinks so. Republican and Democrat saying the War Powers Act, the War Powers Act. I've got to find the audio, and I'll try to find it for tomorrow's show. These constitutional folks talking about the War Powers Act in and of itself could be unconstitutional because the same way your right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed upon, and we all get mad as constitutionalists, say you're passing laws and you shouldn't be infringing on my right to keep and bear arms. What part of shall not be infringed do you not understand? Well, if the constitutional gives the right to the president as the sole commander-in-chief of the military, then that should not be infringed upon either. The only power that Congress is given is a check and a balance, would be the purse strings of budget. And I think that's something that a lot of times there's Democrats doing stuff that they have the right to do as president, and we have coward eunuchs that represent the Republican Party that have been castrated and relegated into the world of femininity as far as limp-wristed politicians that won't cut the power of the purse back to the executive branch, but want to complain about how the executive branch is behaving. So anyway, your thoughts on all these topics, feel free to jump in. Love to have you here. I think we had a technical issue. Some of our memes have just disappeared. Let's see if they reappear here on the program. Jimmy Lakey is my name, back from Africa. I appreciate all of you reaching out. Well wishes. Go back and watch some of the videos I posted of our dancing processional that happened, the clapping processional that happened at our kindergarten graduation. That happened Friday. I did not do a show, so you have not seen these videos before that I posted about our kindergarten graduation. It's one of the reasons I could not do the show. I went out to our what we call the village. I went out, did I did the kindergarten graduation, some celebration, a feast, and a fun time out there. Went back, took another shower, got ready, and began the journey home, and was not available to do the show. So what is it that you used to trust, but you no longer trust anymore? Feel free to jump into that conversation as the question of the day. That is okay. Producer Chad had an internet outage, is what he had. He's working on the meme roulette. It says we can do that. Okay, we'll do the meme. We'll do the meme roulette in just a second if the memes reappear. Here's my question for you. Also, do you believe in a constitutional crisis? Do you believe that Rand Paul and Thomas Massie are right or wrong? Do you fall with that isolationist wing of the libertarian conservatives out there? I don't happen to be there. I don't want boots on the ground. I don't think this is a necessary time. But I think President Trump did what other presidents have said for 4 or 5 presidents have said they would do, and you've got to get rid of Iran. I think it was Vice President Vance. J.D. Vance has said this. It might have been Marco Rubio. So, guys, if you're listening, I don't mean to give one of you credit when the other guy gets the credit, but I have a question for you. You ready? Do you believe this? They said if it weren't for the nation of Iran, the United States would not need the military bases in the Middle East really at all. For the last 40 to 50 years, the real threat to even other countries that are not necessarily Judeo-Christian in their values, those countries all kind of seemingly get along together and don't cause problems if it weren't for the country of Iran. That is something that I find fascinating. If you look at this, they're talking about who Iran might retaliate against, our military installations in some of these countries that surround Iran. And the reason we have military bases there and spend all these billions of dollars is because Iran, since the days of old James Earl Carter and back into the early 80s, late 70s and 80s, we screwed up the foreign policy there. We screwed it up. And when I heard it was Rubio. Delilah says it was Rubio. Rubio said that we really wouldn't need that military presence in the Middle East for the last 50 years if it were not for Iran. And I thought that was a very fascinating observation. So anyway, your comments on that, welcome. And if you're, again, listening to the show live, of course, we pop those on the screen. If you're watching the pre-recorded version of this on the YouTubes or somewhere, you can still comment. So we get notifications of those. And if they're good, we'll talk about them tomorrow. And also, if you're listening to the audio version of the show on any of the podcast platforms later, we always love to have you chime in as well. Send us your messages, info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. All right, producer Chad's having internet troubles. It looks like he's back, but it looks like all of his memes have disappeared from the screen. So let me do this right here. We may have to skip the old roulette here because we got problems with the stream over at the producer Chad studio. That's his studio's mouth. You should call Niels Grafilius and see if he can investigate the problem. I think we need a private investigator to investigate the internet conspiracy that's happening at producer Chad's house. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to mention this to you, Sherry Cree. I sent Sherry a message just yesterday, and I said, Sherry, a lot of stuff happening in real estate, people have some time on their hands. The summer is going to be half over here before we know it. I mean, it's first the break for the kids. And kind of what are we looking at? I want you to go to homeswithsherry.com. If you have been pontificating or considering or contemplating, I should say, buying a home, selling a home, you owe it to yourself and your family to contact Sherry Cree. Homeswithsherry.com. Homeswithsherry.com. I can tell you this right here. Sherry is somebody that's not going to just put a sign in your yard. There's some people that will do that. Sherry is one who just really approaches this thing as, first of all, not just a holistic and white glove service for you on the front end, but she's looking down the road 10, 20, 30 years. She believes that if she helps you get in the right home, the right neighborhood, and do everything correctly, she can help you have that home be the best investment, even a better investment than it would have been had you bought somewhere else. She wants to help you have that home and your real estate create generational wealth, my friends. And that's what Sherry Cree does. She approaches it from that mindset. She comes into your arena of being your realtor. She comes into it with the end in mind, and the end is that one day you're gonna cash out of your last house, or you're gonna pass a house on to somebody down the gene pool from you, and it can be something that creates generational wealth. So she's not just looking short-sighted. Let's put the sign in your yard. She's not just looking at just a couple of weeks. Here's how we're going to stage an open house. She's looking at all that, and she's going to help you with all that. But she's also looking and saying, hey, here's how we can do this. And she wants to help you get to where that home isn't just the place you live. That home is a creator of generational wealth for you. It's just a different paradigm, a different perspective. It's a different view that a realtor is looking with you down the path of 2 or 3 homes, and you just maybe want to sell the house you're in, get a bigger yard. Yes, that's part of it. She can help you. But homeswithsherry.com, you owe it to yourself to reach out anywhere under the sound of my voice on the I-25 corridor in Colorado. If you're in, let's say, the metro Denver area, that includes Parker, that includes Aurora, that includes Broomfield, that includes Boulder, that includes Lafayette, Louisville. Yes, go up the I-25 north. If you're up in the Windsor area, she can help you there. If you're in the Fort Collins area, the Fort Lupton area, I'm doing a geography lesson for those of you listening out of state. If you're in the Denver metro area, she can help you get out of that cesspool as well. I mean, or she can help you move in there if you'd like to move in there. She can help if you're in the Littleton Highlands Ranch area, the Lakewood. I always thought it was called Lakeywood, Lakey, but it's Lake. There's no Y in it. There should be. First place I ever lived in Colorado was Lakewood because I thought it said Lakeywood. And turns out it wasn't, and I moved. So anyway, wherever you're at, homeswithsherry.com, reach out to her, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com, and feel free to reach out and tell her that feel free to tell her that Jimmy Lakey is talking about her on the program, homeswithsherry.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, producer Chad says he's a talented individual, and we are ready for meme roulette. How many of you missed the Globe last week? We did not have a Globe. I know what the chat room is saying over there. Somebody's going to say, yeah, we missed you spinning that ball around. Yeah, somebody's going to make a spinning balls. Yeah, never. See, the sophomoric humor just never leaves me, does it? I'm telling you, I think I'm 14 right up here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's do meme roulette. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows, but we're going to steal them for sure. All right, everybody, let's remember how we got here on this time of weekend of bombing Iran. Number one, Hillary Clinton supplied Iran with uranium to enrich their nuclear program. Anybody remember that? The Secretary of State, the uranium deal. Barack Obama gave Iran $1.7 billion that they used to fund their program. Remember that? They shipped the money over there in the middle of the night. They had to use, they had so much money that they had to, it was like crates of money. It was awful. Remember that story? And also, don't forget, Joe Biden unfroze over $16 billion of funds for Iran. And go back in history, at the end of the first Trump term, Iran was a starving nation. A lot of that global terror network that they were funding was dying, and Iran was really becoming isolated. And Joe Biden said, oh, we feel bad for you, jackwagon Ayatollah. We're going to release $16 billion of funds, and we're going to give it to you. And now we have to now we have to fight them and to bomb the hell out of them because of all these. So Hillary, Barry, and Joe if you wonder how we got here to where we have to intervene in this level in Iran, you can thank old Hillary, you can thank Barry Hussein Obama, and demented Joe Poopy Pants Biden. At what age do you think Joe Biden stopped trusting his farts? I don't know, but he better not. Roger says Jimmy is spinning balls, if you know what I mean. You know, if you know what I mean after anything that you say, it sounds dirty. Let me get the balls up to spin, the ball up to spin, and we shall spin it now in the international meme roulette game that we play. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows, ladies and gentlemen. Comedian Steve Byrne is fun to follow on the internet or watch his routine if you haven't. Federal judge orders Trump to replace 3 nuclear sites in Iran. That ruling's coming down today. They're going to come back from the Washington Circuit Court and probably say, President Trump, you didn't have the right to do that, and you need to replace those nuclear sites immediately. That's how screwed up our judicial system is, which brings me to the point, things you used to trust but no longer trust. Bingo. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. The Dodgers, LA Dodgers, have announced a MS-13 bobblehead night. Anybody hear that the Dodgers, the White House or ICE and Tom Homan denied that they were trying to raid and take some of the Dodgers game day employees? LA Dodgers supposedly blocked ICE from coming onto their property. ICE says that's not necessarily the case. And yet the Dodgers, I think, gave a couple of $1 million to help the legal funds of illegals being deported. So the LA Dodgers have announced their MS-13 bobblehead night, and get your tickets now. Get your tickets now. Let's see how many more we got. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, here it is. Look at this one. It's the faces of, again, some of these corrupt politicians that we know. Barry Obama. You got Hillary Rodham Kankles Clinton, Joe Biden, and there's old John Kerry. Haven't heard from him in a while. The caption above their faces is, we don't negotiate with terrorists. We arm them. We support them. We train them, and we finance them. And if you want to know how we ended up where we're at now, my friends, it's because of people like those 4 guys and lady, you can call her a lady, pictured on your screen. Border Patrol is saying the threat of, this is a breaking news story, the threat of sleeper cells awakening in the United States has never been higher. And that would be a good time if you have that concealed carry in Colorado or you're able to carry. You might want to be well armed because sleeper cells could be out there. That's breaking news right there. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. This is it. This is official footage of the image of a bunker buster bomb being dropped on Iran. If you want to know what these bunker busters look like, there you have it. If you're listening only to the program, we have skydivers there. It's Chris Christie and Whoopi Goldberg. There it is. There's the bunker buster. That's the bunker buster right there. I think that's going to milk us dry, but let's see. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Have we milked the meme machine dry? No, we got another one. Ladies and gentlemen, the Babylon Bee coming through in a pinch. You ready? Toby Keith is smiling down from heaven. There's a picture of the great legendary singer Toby Keith looking down at a blast over the deserted Iranian wilderness. And I hear the song from Toby Keith, "Will put a boot in your ass. It's the American way." Toby Keith is happy today. God bless Toby. Rest in peace. Round around the globe we go, where we steal the memes from no one knows. Ladies and gentlemen, here's another one. Brace yourself, the lefties. The lefties are going to be changing their profile pics to this in 3, 2, 1. It's a little Iranian symbol that says, "I stand with Iran." You know, you lefties out there, you libtards, you have a real problem, don't you? You have to put up the pride flag, and then you have to put up the Ukrainian flag, and you just now had put your Mexican flag up, and now you're trying to find out where the hell you can buy an Iranian flag. I mean, these liberals, they got real problems. I mean, it's coming up 4th of July where I'll have my American flag proudly displayed outside the house of Lakey. And some of you liberals out there are going to need flagpoles all around your yard to celebrate the tyranny and the stupidity that you celebrate. Let's see. Let's see. They got their pride flag. They got the Ukraine flag. They got their Mexican flag. Now they have their Iranian flag. Are there any other flags that the Democrats have been flying recently? And if you're a libtard out there, you're a Democrat, could I ask you a question? On a day-to-day basis, how is it that you know which flag to fly? I mean, obviously the Iranian flag is going to be prominent right now because you hate Donald Trump and you love the same. It's amazing. The people that fly the pride flag as kind of a virtue signaling during Pride Month are also the people flying the Iranian flag. And yet, if you went to Iran and you dared come out as a person of the LGBTQ community, you would be summarily thrown off a building and left for splat and roadkill on the sidewalk. So it is interesting, and yet kind of if they didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have any at all. The same people that would fly the pride flag as virtue signaling during Pride Month, and already during Pride Month, they've had to put down the Mexican flag. Now they got to put up the Iranian flag. I don't know how you libtards keep up with it, but it's got to be difficult rotating of the flags. You know, you have the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknowns. I mean, liberals probably have like nonstop flag ceremonies at their house because they're just having to raise we're mad now. We support Iran. Raise the flag up. Oh, take that one down. It doesn't matter. By the way, next time I go to Africa, we will raise the American flag on our school. That's going to be fun. We have a Rwandan flag, but because we're an American-funded school, it's going to be so happy. I'll probably get emotional watching the American flag go up and helping the kids over there. So if you want, next time you go, if you want to be part of the flag ceremony, love to have you. We got to put the flagpole up. We've already figured it out, but yeah. Jim says the white flag of surrender, that's the secondary flag of France. Jim says the Democrats every once in a while just have to put a white flag out front and say, we surrender. They surrender. By the way, did you hear that France called immediately to Iran after the bombings? The U.S. goes in, the B-2s fly in, we bomb the hell out of these sites, and guess what happened? France called and surrendered. They called Macron. Macron, you don't know? I'm French. We're going to surrender. You haven't done anything. We surrender. The French have already surrendered. U.S. flying the planes and the French are surrendering. Worthless bunch of people. Well, I think we're dry on the memes. Let's see if there's one more in there. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. I saw this. My buddy Doug Giles, who's on this program with us Friday, has his name on a missile, says from Doug Giles. And Toby Keith, put a boot in your ass. It's the American way. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Ladies and gentlemen, we have milked the meme machine dry, and my return to the microphone has gone better than I anticipated because I'm still suffering from a little bit of jet lag, but it's nothing some cigars and a good day of honest work can handle. So I'll be doing that. Hey, to everybody that's tuned in this morning, we appreciate it. Don't forget, go subscribe to the podcast. You can watch this show in its entirety or listen to the show in its entirety. Listen to it all over again. Nils Gravelius was a great guest this morning. I think if you missed that interview, go back and listen to that again. Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spotify, in just a matter of moments after the sign off here, this show will reappear magically on the world of the podcast, and we move from streamcast to podcast seamlessly together, and it's wonderful. Producer Chad does fantastic work on that. He knows what to do. I don't. So, that's the glorious thing about the program. So if you missed any of it or want to hear it again, if you want to watch it again, go to any of the feeds that you're watching on now, the YouTube, the Rumble. It stores in the history there, and you can actually watch the program, see the memes, and see the guest, or you can just listen to it on the podcast platforms. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget our charity work. I just came back from there, and I do mean that. My next trip over there, we're going to be raising the American flag. And if you'd like to, because we're an American-based school, so we are going to do that, and we'll raise an American flag, a little flag ceremony. Everybody there wants to go to America. It's a Rwandan school. The Rwandan flag is up at our school, but we also are Americans, and since we're an American school, we'll fly the American flag there. We're going to do a little ceremony. They said, we'll just buy a flag. I said, no, let's do a ceremony when I come, because it's the American flag, the stars and stripe, and it deserves to be saluted and honored and treated greatly. So we'll do that in the next trip to Africa. So stay tuned for that. But if you would like to donate, it's not about me putting a flag up. It's really about the kids. And go watch some of the videos, see the faces. Those are the kids you're helping. I do appreciate you helping us out anytime you can. Any donation is welcome. Just because I came back from a trip and we bought a lot of food, it doesn't mean we're out of the hole that we have been in this year. It's been a very, very, very difficult year. as far as raising funds. We've got to build a building, desperately need a building. I came back with two conclusions from this trip. We need sponsors and we need space. And those are my two takeaways. We got to have sponsors of kids, and we're going to add some more kids into the program here that you can choose from. Go to my riverspromise.com or riverspromise.org, either one. You'll see a sponsorship tag. Choose a child, sponsor them $65 a month, or just if you make a $65 recurring, we will make sure it applies to those kids. Most of those kids, a lot of those kids that you see, a matter of fact, that kindergarten class that you'll see in the processional, nary one of them have a sponsor. None of them. But we send them to school anyway, just let them finish kindergarten. So anyway, if you can help us, riverspromise.org. Any donation goes to the kids, riverspromise.org. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure to be back with you. A little overtime today, working extra hard today, aren't I? You're welcome. That's how hard I work, keeping America safe and informed. I mean this. Thanks for being a part of the program. I'm still a little tired and slap happy. A little bit tired, a little bit live. I'll get back in the rhythm here. I promise you I will. Hey, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. May God bless you. May God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here.